Chosen one, lock your attention on this message right now. That urge you have to share everything you find. Silence it. Not yet. Not this one. What you are holding in this moment is not meant for every set of eyes. Heaven did not route this to your screen by accident, and it did not route it to everyone. There is a reason the person sitting next to you did not find this. There is a reason your timeline delivered this at the exact moment it did. That is not the algorithm. That is a divine filter. The enemy is working overtime today for one reason and one reason only. He knows what this message carries, and he knows what happens to you the moment you receive it. It all shifts in the next few minutes. The confusion, the pressure, the feeling that you have been circling the same territory without moving forward. But here is what you need to understand before I go any further. The shift is not coming because of luck. It is coming because of something you already did. Something you did not recognize as significant in the moment. Something you almost dismissed. Think back to this week. That moment when you pulled back instead of pushing forward. Maybe you said nothing when you had every right to say something. Or maybe you walked away from a situation that was designed to pull you back into a pattern you have been trying to leave behind. You thought that was weakness. You thought staying quiet meant you lost. You did not lose. You activated something. You did not find this message by chance. The algorithm did not bring you here. The Most High did. This is a divine appointment, and it was set before the foundations of the earth were laid. You are not stumbling across content. You are standing at a threshold. Stay through the entire message, because in the next few minutes, I am going to deliver the exact decree that heaven released over your life this week. I am going to show you the moment you unknowingly triggered your own breakthrough without realizing it. And at the end, I am going to give you the declaration that seals this season shut so the enemy cannot reopen what God has already closed. Do not close this. Do not skip ahead. Your future self is standing at the end of this message waiting for you. And if you leave before the verdict is read, you risk reopening a door that heaven already shut on your behalf. My name is Zarakiel. I have spent years tracking the hidden patterns of spiritual warfare, the awakening sequences, the divine setups that most people mistake for destruction. And I have walked over 10,000 chosen ones through the exact threshold you are standing at right now. If this is your first time here, subscribe and hit the notification bell immediately. Not because I need the numbers, because the next transmission I release may be the only weapon you have for the war coming at you next week. Now, let me show you what the enemy does not want you to see. The last 72 hours have not just been heavy, they have been suffocating in a way that is different from your usual battles. Maybe you noticed it yesterday, when the silence in your own home felt louder than any argument. Or maybe you woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning this week and could not go back to sleep, lying in the dark with your chest tight and your mind locked on something you could not name. Or perhaps it has been a low-grade weight you have been carrying all week. Something pressing on your shoulders that no one around you seems to notice or understand. You feel suspended, like you are caught between two worlds. The life you have been living and the life you were told was yours. And in that gap, in that suspended space, the enemy has been whispering a very specific lie directly into your thoughts. He has been telling you that the reason everything feels stalled is because of something you did wrong. He has been looping a specific moment back through your mind, that moment when you chose silence over retaliation, that moment when you did not fight back, that moment when you stepped away from a situation that everyone around you said you should have stayed and handled. The accuser is telling you that your restraint was weakness. He is telling you that because of that moment, the blessing has been held back, that you disqualified yourself, that the window is closing. But I need you to hear what the scripture actually says about your situation. Nahum 1-9 declares, "What do you conspire against the Lord? He will make an utter end of it. Affliction shall not rise up the second time." Listen to that carefully. Affliction shall not rise up the second time. The enemy wants you to believe you are in another cycle. He wants you to accept the loop as your permanent address. He wants the weight you are feeling to register in your spirit as punishment, as consequence, as evidence that you have been disqualified. That is a deception. You are not in a cycle. You are in a conclusion. The heaviness you feel is not the weight of punishment. It is the weight of finality. It is the pressure of something ancient and stubborn being uprooted from the ground of your life. The tension you are carrying is not a sign that the war is continuing. It is the sound of the enemy losing his grip. That moment when you stayed silent, when you walked away, when you chose not to engage, was not weakness. It was the move heaven was waiting for. It was the act that signed the eviction notice. You did not ruin your destiny in that moment. You finished something. Keep it quiet. Receive this, and stay until the very end. What you just received is not a small thing. The moment you recognized yourself in those words, the 3 a.m., waking, the tightness in the chest, the silence you chose when every nerve in your body was screaming to react. That recognition was not emotional resonance. That was heaven confirming an identity you have been second-guessing for far too long. Some messages don't just inform, they activate. If something stirred deep in your spirit just now, you may be ready to receive the chosen one's mantle. This sacred guide reveals the 12 divine codes behind your calling, your suffering, and your destiny. The codes that turn the life heaven already wrote over you into the life you actually walk. The link is in the first pinned comment, but only for a limited time. Now stay with me, because what I am about to unfold is going to reframe everything you thought you understood about the season you are in. There is a pattern that runs through the lives of every person heaven has marked for significant assignment. It is not a pattern of ease. It is not a pattern of linear progress or visible momentum. It is a pattern of concealment. Before the promotion is made public, the chosen one disappears. Before the mantle is placed, the person who will carry it is taken somewhere no one can see them. Moses did not walk out of Egypt and straight into his calling. He wandered into a desert and stayed there for 40 years. And in that desert, something was being stripped from him that could not be removed any other way. The arrogance of palace living. The false identity of Egyptian nobility. The belief that he could manufacture his own breakthrough by force. He killed a man trying to start his own deliverance. And God said, "Not yet. Not with that still in you." The desert was not punishment. The desert was preparation that looked exactly like abandonment. You have been in your desert, and you have been misreading it. The silence around you, the doors that have not opened, the relationships that have not flourished, the opportunities that seem to appear and then vanish. You have been reading all of it as rejection, but heaven has been reading it as refinement. The concealment was the protection. The delay was the development. And the restraint you exercised this week, that moment you almost dismiss as a mistake, was the last act of a person who has completed their wilderness season. But here is where it goes deeper, because restraint alone does not produce breakthrough. Plenty of people stay quiet and still stay stuck. The difference is not in the action. The difference is in what the action came from. There are two kinds of silence. There is the silence of someone who is afraid to speak, and there is the silence of someone who has finally learned that not every battle requires their voice. The first kind of silence is rooted in fear. The second kind is rooted in authority. One shrinks. The other governs. And what you did this week was not the silence of fear. I want you to hear that clearly. You did not back down because you were afraid. You stepped back because something in your spirit finally understood that engaging that situation would cost you more than winning it was worth. That is not timidity. That is discernment operating at a level you have not seen in yourself before. And discernment at that level is always the sign that a new season is opening. And this leads us to something most people miss entirely. There is a transition that happens in the spirit before it manifests in the natural. Before the door opens in your circumstances, a door opens in your character. Before the blessing arrives in your hands, the hands themselves are changed. Most people are praying for the door to open, but they have not yet noticed that they themselves are being made into someone capable of walking through it without destroying what is on the other side. You cannot carry a new level of anointing in an old container. The vessel has to be remade before the oil is poured. And the remaking process is what you have been experiencing. The pressure, the stripping, the silence, the wilderness. It has not been God ignoring you. It has been God rebuilding the infrastructure of your life from the inside out, so that when the weight of what He is about to release actually lands on you, you do not collapse under it. And what is coming next in this message will likely surprise you, because it always does when people finally see it. There is something the enemy understands about you that he has been weaponizing. He knows that you are a builder by nature. He knows that you are someone who, when you see a gap, you feel compelled to fill it. When you see a problem, something in you rises to solve it. When you see someone in pain, you reach toward them. That instinct is not a flaw. That is the nature of the assignment on your life. But the enemy has been exploiting that instinct to keep you perpetually poured out and perpetually delayed. He has been sending you needs to meet, crises to manage, people to stabilize. Not because those people were your mission, but because he needed you distracted from it. He does not always attack the chosen one directly. He knows that a person walking in their purpose is too anchored to be easily moved. So instead, he floods their periphery. He fills the edges of their life with noise, urgency, and obligation until the person at the center is so consumed by everything around them that they never actually step into what they were built for. The restraint you practiced this week was more significant than you know, because for once you did not fill the gap. You did not reach into the situation. You did not manage the chaos that was not yours to manage. And in that act, you withdrew your energy from a cycle that has been feeding off of you for years. Something lost its power source. And that is why the weight feels different right now. That is why the atmosphere around you feels like it is in transition. Because it is. Something was just starved of what it needed to survive, and it is losing its hold. But let me challenge you with something, because this is where the real confrontation begins. You have been celebrating your restraint, and you should. But beneath that restraint, there is a belief that has not yet been fully surrendered. It is subtle. It is buried under spiritual language and sincere intention. But it is there. And it is the last thing standing between you and the fullness of what heaven has been preparing. It is the belief that you still need to be understood by the people who could not see you. That somewhere, in some quiet part of your spirit, you are still waiting for the ones who doubted you to acknowledge what God has done. You are waiting for validation from a source that was never designed to validate you. And as long as that hunger is alive, you will remain tethered to the season you are trying to leave. Because the people who were assigned to your past cannot release you into your future. They do not have the authority. They never did. The approval you have been looking for from them is not in their possession. It belongs to heaven alone. And heaven already gave it. Before you were formed, before you made a single mistake, before you ever did anything right, the verdict was already in. Stay with me, because the next layer of this is the one that breaks the final chain. The reason validation from those people feels so necessary is not pride. I want to name it correctly so you can confront it correctly. It is grief. You are grieving the version of those relationships that you always believed was possible. You are grieving the moment that never came. The moment when they finally saw you, finally acknowledged the cost you paid, finally said the words that would have made the journey feel worth it. And grief, disguised as spiritual hunger, will keep you circling a well that has been dry for years. The well is dry. The person or the relationship or the community that you keep returning to, hoping it will finally pour into you the way you need, it cannot. Not because you are unworthy of what you are looking for, but because what you are looking for was never stored there to begin with. What you need cannot be drawn from a human source. It can only be received from the one who created the need. And here is where something unexpected opens up. Because once you stop reaching into that dry well, once you truly release the grief and stop performing for the audience that was never going to applaud you, something terrifying happens. The space gets very quiet, and in that quiet, you come face to face with the version of yourself that exists without the approval of others. And that version of yourself is the one heaven has been trying to speak to all along. The version that is not performing, not explaining, not justifying, not managing how they are perceived. Just present, just real, just available. That version of you is extraordinarily powerful. And the enemy has been engineering every distraction, every relationship drama, every crisis of perception, to keep you from ever getting quiet enough to meet them. You just met them this week, in the silence, in the moment when you did not react, in the moment when you chose not to explain yourself to people who had already decided what they believed about you. You met the person God made before the world got to them. And that person is the one who is going to walk through the door that is opening. Now let me give you what you came for. Let me give you the declaration that seals this shut. Before you sleep tonight, place your hand on your chest and speak this with full intention. I release every label that was placed on me by hands that were never appointed to name me. I release the grief of relationships that could not carry what heaven deposited in me. I release the need for validation from those who were not assigned to my future. I break agreement with every lie that called my restraint weakness, my silence defeat, and my wilderness punishment. I declare that what I experienced this week was not loss, it was completion. I declare that the cycle is broken and will not rise again. I declare that every door the enemy attempted to reopen has been sealed by the hand of the Most High, and I walk forward now as someone who has finished what was required of them in this season. I am not waiting for permission. I am not waiting for applause. I am walking into what was written over my name before the foundations of the earth were laid. It is done. It is sealed. And I receive it now. Do not let this message sit in your watch history without responding to it. If this reached you today, it did not come by accident. Leave a comment with the word sealed. Just that one word, so that I know who received this transmission. And if you know someone who is in this exact battle right now, someone who has been carrying that same weight and misreading it the same way, send this to them. Not because it is content, because it is a lifeline. And the person who needed this in the middle of their night needs to know someone thought of them enough to reach back and hand it to them. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. And you are not alone. Heaven has been tracking every step. And this week, it moved on your behalf.